Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast. I'm Dr. Davina Detrik.
I'm Dr. Davina Detrik.
And we are going to be talking to you about the business and the mindset of dentistry.
Welcome back, everyone,
Welcome back.
to the Dental
And Mental.
Podcast.
Well, welcome back. Good to see you.
Welcome. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, buddy.
I like that jacket. You look good.
Oh, lots of people have been asking me where my clothes are from. Dylan, insert caption. Literally 0 people have asked.
No one asks about my fashion.
No one asks
And
about mine either.
Surprised, because look at
Same.
this.
Same. I don't know why more people are not in the comments like, link, please.
Dang, man, look at that. Yeah.
I know. No.
No, I mean, you are a very unique dresser. So there's some interesting things going on here. Those boots.
Mm-hmm. These are Rick
Owen?
Owens. These are Rick.
Owens.
Yeah, Rick Owens.
Got
These
it.
are Rick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rick Owens.
Yeah.
So you got Rick Owens boots. Those are,
Yep.
what do they call those, knee highs?
They're over the knee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the jacket
Prada.
and Versace shirt.
Yeah. And Attico leggings.
Dang. What's that cost right there?
Well, a lady never tells.
But a man knows.
Let's just say I'm getting Amex preferred for Othello.
What, bud? Yep.
Here
that's
we are.
why Daddy's wearing
Okay.
American Eagle jeans.
Okay, well, to that point, you and I had a conversation the other day
We did.
where
About
I
what?
said, remember you and I had a conversation where I said, but this is my one flaw. Let me have it.
This is true. You are a very good wife.
Right? Yeah.
And your one flaw is running up the Amex. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Because you and I had a conversation where I said, look, I am slaying in all of these wife categories. Like, let's get up the metrics, right?
That's right.
Facts over feelings. Let's get out the metrics.
You know what? If you're going to be just crushing on all these, just ticking boxes, we're going to have Amazon boxes. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, but those are necessities. I don't buy things from Amazon that are not necessities. None of this came from Amazon, P.S. In case you thought that that's what my clothes were being
I didn't
shipped
think
in.
the clothes were Amazon.
Well, I know, but you were like, Amazon boxes. I'm like, baby, that's toilet paper and laundry detergent. Rick Owens does not ship in an Amazon box.
Oh my gosh. No, so good. So
I don't
good.
care if I sound snotty. It is what it is. I'm allowed
You
my
don't
vice.
actually. You could great style. You have fantastic style.
It's true. I'd
is true.
argue, but it would just be false humility.
You probably should teach me a thing or two because I'm really bringing this down, the vibe down.
No, I think you have good style. Where did those shoes come from?
Patient. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Didn't even buy my own shoes.
That's right. That's right. This is a good story. How'd you get them?
I had a patient. She worked for Nike, and she said, if you hurt me, I'll kill you. But if you don't hurt me and I don't feel anything, I will buy you a pair of shoes. And I said, deal. So
Were you expecting her to actually follow through?
no.
Right.
No.
Yeah. It's like
Lord bless her, she's a Zoomer.
It's
all the
almost
way.
like
I
the
was
equivalent
this
of
is
like
not gonna happen.
It's like the equivalent of being a dentist and being like turning the screen over for a tip. Right? Like
Wait, yeah, actually, that is very true. Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, I mean, being a dentist, you hurt people and then you take their money. It's great. So there's not a lot of love there. And I thought, there's no way. But I didn't hurt her. She kind of fell asleep during the appointment. And then when she woke up, I was like, well, I'm a size 9.5. And I was just like teasing her, and she's like kind of laughed too. And I was like sorting something else out with my assistant, and then she turned around, she gave me her phone, and she goes, which shoe do you want? And I was like, you're serious? She's like, yeah, I'll bring them to you next week. So yeah, lo and behold, I think it took like 2 weeks. She brought him in with her dad.
that's so sweet.
Yeah, it
I
was
love
awesome.
that.
I love these shoes. These shoes are awesome.
They are cool.
Yeah. Well, we've got something fun to talk about, but it's going to be a two-parter.
Yeah, we do. But I think we should also talk about the inspiration for this podcast because
Ooh,
this came,
so I should.
the inspiration came off the backs of another dentist.
In a good way.
Yeah, right. Like that's what inspired this.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're saying it because just so often it's like, oh, these are my ideas, not giving credit where credit's due. And
True.
this was really inspired by another conversation that a colleague had.
Yeah. So I was talking to you earlier, and Dr. Kyle Stanley, great guy, phenomenal guy, doing some amazing things in dentistry. We've had the opportunity to have a couple conversations now, and a lot of respect for him. He had put up a post, I think it's today, if I'm not mistaken, that was about how complaining about the difficulties and challenges of dentistry is not the same for both sexes.
Wait, you're saying he was complaining?
No, he was saying this about how dentists will complain.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Right? So they'll say like, oh my gosh, dentistry's so hard. And then people are kind of chiming back and forth and be like, well, it's hard for us and it's hard for us. And he's making the distinction that, yes, it is challenging for every dentist that's out there for lots of reasons. And he said, if you strip away the biology of us, yes, equal playing field in terms of it's very difficult. However, there's something very different for a female dentist that they experience. And I thought it was such a fascinating post because his point was, y'all have a biological clock. And there's kids in the mix and families, and you guys have to bear a lot of that. And so the difficulty that you experience, the guilt that you might feel in you have a kid, you've already got this business, you've given 2 decades of your life to it, right, and creating it. Now you've got the business, and you decide, well, I also want to have a family. So then you start your family, but now your family's taking from your business taking from your family, and it's this really weird guilt cycle that continues, right?
Right.
So that was a very fascinating conversation for us to have, just in general. Especially you, I think you have a lot to say on this front. So
I would also say bravo to him for even bringing up the subject.
Yeah.
Because this is like one of the subjects that you're like, you're not supposed to talk about.
Well, even from an engagement standpoint, I haven't looked at it recently, but it's performed very, very well. And I think it's because it's striking a chord, right? There's people are like, yes, someone's saying this. And that matters. It matters that you're doing something that people are not used to seeing or talking about or doing. So
right, yeah.
Agreed. Bravo to him.
Yeah, bravo to him for bringing up this topic. I think it's great, which you and I really didn't discuss this. We were going to save the discussion for the podcast. So we don't know which way this is going to go. We never do.
This
is not rehearsed.
I never do.
Galen was just like, hey, this is really cool. I think we should talk about this. And that was kind of where we left it. So we don't know how this is going to land.
We don't, but I'm sure it'll land somewhere that, keeps the people entertained.
Well, entertained, but probably pisses a few off.
Yeah. Well, tell me your thoughts first. Or maybe I should say this. You went through something kind of like this a little bit in the sense that you devoted a large portion of your life, a very large portion of your life from like age, 15 or something like that?
Oh, to dentistry?
Yeah. When did you start working in dentistry?
I started working in dental practice when I was 16 years old.
Okay. So from 16 to 30, I mean, obviously you're still in dentistry.
I've never been
clinically practicing.
Right, clinically practicing, but I've never been in an industry outside of dentistry.
Yeah.
Except for solar. Except for a stint that I had when I was in solar, which was really fun.
Still love.
Yeah, I little heart palpitations for solar.
Bleeding green, baby.
That's right. Say what you will.
So basically your entire life
has been,
that's what we're getting at.
Has been dedicated to
26
dentistry.
years.
Yes.
7, whatever, has been devoted to this craft.
Yeah.
And you've done some very interesting things. One of those, you obviously kind of started in on your entrepreneurial side of things very early in your dental career. Graduated dental school, practiced for a little bit. Give us a little bit of the rundown of like kind of what happened. Just give a little bit of a timeline, and then let's start to dissect that. Because I don't know if a lot of people understand really the timeline.
Oh, like the timeline of dentistry.
Yeah, like just in general, how you've journeyed through dentistry, but then especially you kind of getting away from the clinical side. Why, and where'd you go from there?
Okay. So I started in dentistry when I was 16 years old. And shocker, I grew up in a small town, 8,000 people is the population, so a really small town. And I went to my parents and I said, I want to go to school for fashion merchandising. And they said, that is not a real job. So don't plan on us paying for anything if you want to go and like be silly and do silliness, right? So they said, you know, we're in a town of 8,000 people. We have one dentist in the entire town who was my dentist. He was fantastic. And my parents said, why don't you go talk to Dr. Hunter and Kathy, who was his wife. She was also the hygienist, and see what that's like. So I was just doing it to kind of appease my parents. And I went and had a conversation with them. And they said, do you want a job for the summer? I was like, yeah, sure. I need a job for the summer. And I really fell in love with it. And I think part of the falling in love with it was obviously the profession, the craft, and the people and all of that. But I really had the luxury of working for really incredible people. Yeah. So that made a big difference, right? Like my dentist he was good. And he was also very emotionally neutral, which I thought was really cool. And also got me into good music. Like we would listen to Elvis and Buddy Holly and Neil Diamond. And so that was like really part of the start of me loving different music too. So it was like this whole like merging of music and fun and to see somebody who had degrees and successful. And so the whole thing was very cool to me. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. But being from a small town, it was seeded very early on that nobody from our town went to professional school. This was something that our counselors would tell us, like, oh, you want to be a doctor?
I remember that, yeah.
Just so you know, nobody from this town actually does that. So you might want to aim a little bit lower.
Right.
So having that in the back of my head, I was like, okay, I want to be a hygienist because that seemed attainable. But being a dentist was like, okay, girl.
It felt like too much of a long
Yeah,
shot.
that's a pipe dream. So you better just calm down, right? So I was like, okay, I think I could be a hygienist. So I told my mom and dad that's what I wanted to do. I worked there for a little while, got my prereqs done at a community college, and then applied to hygiene school, got in, and moved to Albuquerque when I was 18 and started hygiene school, which
is the big city in New Mexico.
The big city, okay? The big city. Cute little apartment, bought my own furniture, saved all my earnings, and bought like all this cute little retro furniture. My apartment was 10 out of 10.
Found a little Chinese restaurant that you didn't tell anyone about.
No, yeah. I'm a weird bird and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
The stories are so good. Yeah.
So I finished hygiene school when I'm 20.
Okay.
Have, my bachelor's degree then. And my aunt and uncle lived in Denver, a very big city. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move to Denver. And so I moved to Denver and I got a job working at a periodontal office with 3 periodontists and 1 endodontist. And why they hired me to this day, I'll never know. Because I was young, didn't know anything. And this was the practice, the perio practice.
Versman and Heller,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
This was Dr. Versman, Dr. Heller, and Dr. Glick. Amazing periodontists. Like I said, why they hired me. And I was actually crying because I had applied for a job at a Perfect Teeth and I didn't get the job. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get a job. This was 3 months into my job search. I still hadn't found a job. And then I got hired with a periodontal group and I was just absolutely in love. I loved that job so much. I had so much fun. And so I did that and I said, okay, I really want to go to dental school. And they were like, yeah. I was very blessed to have doctors, they were men that supported me in doing that and were like, yeah, go do it.
Why did you change your mind? Or why did you, this is just to say it the way you said it, why didn't you aim one notch higher?
For dental school?
Yeah.
Like to begin with?
Well, you started out thinking hygiene, that was attainable, so you did that, but then something shifted, or did it not?
No, it never shifted. Yeah. I always wanted to be a dentist. I just didn't know if it was possible.
Yeah, okay.
So when I was in hygiene school, the interesting thing there was that I actually had another hygiene friend, and he was in hygiene school as well, and we were taking all our prereqs together because we both wanted to be dentists, and so we would take physics and organic chemistry and stuff on the weekends from hygiene school. And he's actually like in Texas and he's an oral surgeon and he's doing phenomenal now and teaching out there and all of that stuff. But that was like my buddy throughout that process. But I just wasn't really sure if I can do it. And so it was that confidence building, like step by step. Can I do this? Do I have what it takes?
Got it.
So when I moved to Denver, it was like I had my prereqs. I was ready to go. All I needed to do was apply to school. So then I got in, but I think a huge part of the story to mention it was One of the real reasons I wanted to go to dental school is because I felt some sort of insecurity coming from a small town. Mm-hmm. And I really had that drive to want to prove that I could be more, that I could be somebody that could go to professional school. Like I wanted that notch in my belt.
And when you say insecurity coming from a smaller town, is it because there was no one else that had done it before, so you feel like an imposter, or was it something with your parents? More
No,
like
no. I wanted to prove that I could do it. It didn't have anything really to do with outside people, or it wasn't like I was trying to prove it to somebody. It was like, but this could be done. You know me, and you know that even to this day, I am very much a like, what's possible? What's possible? And so I'm like, why isn't that possible? Yeah. And so I wanted to really push and test that. Is that true, or can we remove some boundaries and make this work? So when I got into dental school, I was dating somebody at the time.
No, she wasn't.
I was dating somebody at the time, and it'll actually lead into something that we're probably going to do later on in the future. But I got married, and when I found out I had gotten into dental school, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my lifelong dream. I've been really working for this. And I found out I was pregnant. So the dream I had been working for ages, I had to call CU, which was my dream school, because I had gotten into Arizona as well.
Yeah.
But CU was really the place that I wanted to go, and I had to call them and ask them if I could defer for a year. And that was really hard.
Yeah. And they said yes.
They said yes, which is how we ended up in the same class.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was kind of a bit heartbreaking. I mean, but maybe a mixture, because you're welcoming our son into the world. But at the same time, you're also like, I got to put off this dream. Will I actually even get back to it? Did you have that doubt? Did you have that doubt of like, will I come back to this? Or am I now going to focus on a kid?
No, I didn't have the doubt because I had already been in. Right. I had gotten acceptance letter to CU. And I don't know if they gave you the same speech, but when we went to CU, they said there are 1,500 applicants for your 50 spots.
They said there were 10,000 for my one spot.
Okay.
Similar talk.
Well, they were nicer to me and they gave me better odds. They said there are 1,500 applicants for these 50 spots. And so...
I actually did say that, yeah.
Right? So when I got in...
Lottery.
Yeah. I wasn't like, oh no, maybe I will or maybe I won't. I was like, I got a seat.
Yeah.
That was incredible. So if they let me defer, that meant I would be showing up the following year.
Yeah. Okay. So you fast forward a little bit, you go through dental school, and you're raising our son.
Yep. I'm raising Nico while I'm in dental school. So I didn't have many friends in dental school because I wasn't part of the active social life. I was a mother.
Yeah.
And I was also really fat at that time too. So I was.
You were not.
I was. I was. Like we're not talking
post-pregnancy.
Well, yes, but we're not talking about feelings. We were talking about what my BMI was, and I had a BMI that would suggest that I was very unhealthy. And so, one of the things that I was really focusing on was raising my son, not failing out of dental school, because that biochem class, guys, that. That biochem class really tried to take me out.
The nicest, terrible person there was.
Everything else was great. Everything else, no problems. But biochem was my kryptonite. And so I was really focused on those things. So there was, not much of a social life. But I always really knew that I wanted to be a mother.
Well, I mean, even just like think about that for a second. A guy or a girl. There's a lot of things to juggle in life. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, in life, it's just there's so much. Add to that, if you're a dentist, you wear every hat, especially if you're an owner. Right? If you're an owner, it's literally every hat you could possibly think of in business you have to wear. And then you add to that you're a mother, and whether it's pregnancy leading up to that, and then trying to nurture and raise this child on top of trying to get your body back into the shape that you're used to, that you want it to look like, right? These are things that men don't have to experience.
Right.
They have to go through that. And so there's so much work mentally and physically and emotionally that you have to go through. It was a lot to carry in 4 years.
Right. Which to the point, the toll really, the payment came due when it came time to ending my marriage. Right. That was the one place where I was like, oh, the marriage will be fine. I've got to focus on these other things, which meant that the marriage wasn't prioritized. And so that quickly came to an end.
If you will, say a little more about that, because I think that it does hearken to what we'll probably
be talking about.
Yeah. Because
I'm okay talking about this because we've really done a lot of work on it and have come out the other end. And I've also had conversations with, I call him the Mister. I do not call him my ex-husband because that just feels, I don't know, it just feels like not honoring of his position in our life and the position in my son's life. So I call him the Mister, but the Mister and I have had these conversations as well. So we're on the other side of what now looks nice and tidy, but wasn't during the time, right? But you and I have talked about this. At one point, I apologized to the Mister because I said, I was so focused on my goal of becoming a dentist that I really was an absent wife. I was really an absent wife. And I said to him, I was like, I really owe you an apology for that because that is ownership of my side of the street, is that I wasn't there. I really wasn't present. I wasn't putting in the work or effort in that area because I had just thought that it would be fine.
Yeah.
I just thought, I'll always be here. You'll always be there. What's there really to tend to? And that was part of, I think, me being young and naive at that point and not really understanding what it took to build and create a marriage and sustain it.
Well, in defense of both of you, to some degree, it's one of the harder points of life, when you're a young professional and you have young kids, you're getting pulled a million different directions, right? And it's that old adage, but like you got to wait till like your 40s until you really start like getting your stride and starting to have things kind of go your way. The early 30s is just you getting your teeth kicked in, And so I think the environment was not one it didn't give you a lot of grace for both of you. And on top of that, I think it started to make you guys a little more distant, but both of you kind of thinking like it'll just kind of always be here. And so it was a garden that was untended to, and both thought that the other person would water it or that it would water itself, and it just didn't happen.
Right. Yep. That's exactly it. So my marriage ended my third year of dental school, which on top of everything that you're going through in dental school and trying to get through and having a small child, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Okay. So that comes to an end. Now you're about ready to graduate. You had this very interesting experience at graduation. The rest of us are tossing hats in the air like idiots and hooting and hollering and taking pictures. And there you are, depressed.
Yeah.
Why were you depressed?
Yeah. I was really sad graduation day, and I called my childhood best friend. She's known me the longest. And I said, I am so sad because I think I made the wrong choice. I think I made the wrong life choice. I've sacrificed my marriage. I don't know how great of a mother I've been. I think I've been pretty good now looking back in retrospect, but I think I was really hard on myself at that time.
Yeah.
And I told her, this just feels like for what? Like, what is this really all for?
Yeah.
And I think, to be clear, we're having this conversation because I'm hoping this conversation helps somebody else. This isn't a conversation of therapy. We've already done that. So no need to feel any emotions around it. But I'm hoping that, right? I don't want it to be like a disgusting, like vulnerable podcast, but I do want it to hopefully help somebody else and meet them where they are.
Yeah. Oh, and I think I could think it can be just that. This is not a airing of your laundry.
Right. I hope that somebody can listen to this and at least find some relatability or understand that they're not going through things in isolation.
Yeah, very real battle scars. Life is a battle. Just, yeah.
And like Theo Vaughn says, life, just more life. Just it's
Put
life, and then some,
a little too much.
Yeah, and then some more, yeah, and then just shake some life on top of it, son, baby.
Life wrapped in life.
Life wrapped in life. That's right.
It just keeps coming.
Keeps coming.
All right, so you graduate, and you and I start dating.
Yeah.
And we moved back, living in two separate places. I'm living down Socorro.
Yeah.
You're living up in Albuquerque. You're commuting, about 4 hours a day?
Yeah. 2 hours there, 2 hours back. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
And what was that like? I mean, you kind of go from, honestly, let me just say this. You go from working at probably one of the best dental practices in terms of the way it was run, structured, profitability, what you were doing as a hygienist, right? Life was good. And then you decide, I want to be a little bit more. I want to be a dentist. And then the wheels come off the fucking bus. Right?
Off the bus.
And it just keeps coming off. And then you graduate and you're like, well, at least I'm a dentist now. And then you start driving 4 hours a day. And how much were you making?
Oh, I was making absolutely no money. I was making no money. And
what do you mean by no money?
no, like negative dollars is what I mean by what I mean by
how do you make negative dollars?
How you make negative dollars is your life costs more than you're earning. That's how you make negative dollars. So
Nice.
when it really hit me.
But it wasn't Versace yet. Just life was costing you more than it was Versace too.
Oh no, I was not shopping.
Life was costing me more, like I said. If you enjoyed this episode of the Dental and Mental Podcast and this topic resonated with you, we go so much deeper inside the Thrive Lab.
So if you too want to be copied but not replicated, come join us in the lab.
And just for you, because you listen to the podcast, if you want a full $1,200 off of the year-long subscription, just use coupon code podcast. See you then.
You guys, I wish that I had a closet full of Rick and I was crying. I'd be crying in my Prada, but that was not the case. I was just crying in my, I don't even know what I had at that time, but it wasn't anything. I'll put some pictures up. I had a really bad haircut because I could only afford really bad haircuts and really bad clothes. Maybe that's why I'm so. Yeah, I'll give them to you guys. I have no.
Someone hacked the phone.
Yeah, I will. We're gonna post them, Dylan, because I have no shame about that. It was I look at that woman and I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much for working your ass off in bad clothes and bad hair. If it wasn't for you, we would not be here today, girl. You know, right? Work hard with your bad clothes and bad hair. It's okay. I even talked to one of my girlfriends about this, and she was talking about what she could afford at what stage in her life. And she had a friend comment on the shoes that she was wearing, and they were candies. And she was like, that was all I could afford. And I was like, yeah, but thank God that we were those women at that point in time who had the courage to do things with bad hair and bad clothes and bad skin and just keep going, you know?
Well, I mean, also,
we're talking about this podcast in context of women, so they will understand what those things mean, you know?
As a tangent, but not tangent. You still got married. I never saw you that way at all, which is interesting. Truly.
But that I could bag a 10 and even have bad clothes and bad hair.
A solid 7.8.
Yeah, ladies, look out for your dime.
It's a poor representation. Can't even finish my sentence. It is a poor representation. You look at these photos, right? And they're the anti-Instagram, the glossy pics of what we think life should be like. But that's because, your 9 to 5 is most of your life.
Yeah.
Right? And so the way you're describing yourself, it's that is most of our life. It's not as glamorous. It's not all that. But, that doesn't mean that in these little spurts of time, you're not put together. You were, absolutely. And we went to the AACD. Remember that? That was a great time. It's our first real experience at a conference. And I'd never been to one. Dental School, I'd never been to one. So my first one's AACD. And that was, AACD's gone through some journeys. I was going to be honest. They were crushing it when we first went there.
AACD, I want you to know, I'm speaking directly to you. My first AACD, we locked down Superhero Island at Universal Studios, and we got to ride the roller coaster as many times as we want.
2014.
Now I get a cheese sandwich.
Well, they're better now. They got a little bit better.
Be that as it may, it's not locking down Superhero Island.
That was wild. That was like Black Amex. It was going to start going.
It was incredible.
It was.
Yeah, that first AACD, I was like.
They had a couple years there. We went and we were big fans of them, and then it kind of went down a little bit. Everyone said that. And then I really think that like Adamo and Amanda and others have really like
they're
pulled
doing
that thing right
they're
back
doing
out.
an incredible job, and I think
an amazing job.
They really get it.
Crushed
They
it.
really get what the people want, and so we're so happy to see it.
But I bring that up because that was a damn good time.
It was a great
And if you
time.
guys want to lock down Superhero Island again,
We wouldn't be
wouldn't be
opposed.
sad.
Invite us. We'll come. We'll be there.
wouldn't be sad. Nah, it's a good crew over there. Yeah. So when there's these moments, right? There's moments of this of light amidst a kind of dark time. It was a very dark year financially, emotionally.
Yeah. But even from a motherhood perspective, I was dropping off my son. He was the very first person to go into before care, and he was the last person to be picked up at aftercare. And that was hard.
Well, okay. So in light of Kyle Stanley's post, talk a little about that because he really highlighted the guilt piece. And it's the cyclical guilt of you got to produce, you got to employ your people, you got to make money, right? But you also have a mouth to feed, and you have this family that you're supposed to be present for, and nurture and care for. Well, when you're dropping your son off, 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, driving 2 hours, doing work, but actually not really getting paid very much, if anything. Picking him at the end of the day, it's got to feel some sort of way from a guilt perspective. I would imagine. Did you feel that?
Absolutely. It's brutal to feel. I think it's a feeling of failure on all fronts, where it's like I'm not crushing as a mother. I'm not crushing as a dentist. I'm not crushing at anything. I'm just kind of getting by. I'm in survival mode.
No.
I'm not crushing as a wife or a partner. I think that's something that's not talked about, and that you and I we've done a lot of work around is studying with somebody who really understands male and female roles. And I think that was a game changer for our relationship because understanding that to produce a result, you're largely in your masculine, that really has an effect on a relationship, right? Do you want to, if you're a heterosexual male, do you want to be in a relationship with another male? Right? That causes some friction.
Yeah.
Because it's like, who's leading, me or you?
Yeah.
And when do I
big
shut it
time.
off? And
It's
how do
huge.
I shut it off? And when am I not responsible for producing a result? And when am I supposed to be nurturing? And there's all these constant conversations that can go through a person's head, a woman's head, especially because you are responsible for producing an outcome. And yet you are expected to shift into a completely different role that is not responsible for producing a result. And so that can feel like, well, I'm doing nothing, or I'm not contributing to the cause that I'm responsible for.
Right.
And that's really difficult.
Right. Well, I think that leads into our part two, because part two is going to be really about kind of our answer to this problem, because this problem is something that a lot of dentists face, or a lot of female dentists face. But there's obviously another side to that too. There is a men's component too that we want to address. It's a very interesting one.
Right, because
that doesn't
men
get talked about much, actually.
You have to be in relationship with us.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's expectations about what men are supposed to carry, but also what they're not supposed to say. And so there's a lot that's there that's just kind of carried in silence. So I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Leave us with the cliffhanger. So you had, before we get into part two, you finally stopped your job working at 4 hours of driving and all the rest. You finally got a job at kind of like an associateship of some sort.
Yes, but
And
the big reason why I stopped my job is because I was making negative dollars, and my mom is really funny. My mom has a wicked sense of humor.
just very smart.
And yeah, my mom is really smart. And we were talking, and my mom made a joke, as she does, and she said, if me and your dad help you, maybe you'll be able to keep your job. And that was the moment that it hit me. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to beg for money if I want to keep my job. That's wild.
Yeah, it was, I think at one point you were like 3 months without a paycheck.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
And I remember like coming home, and that's what I'm saying. Like there's a part of that stress that gets carried by both people in a relationship, regardless, and it calls for some hard conversations. So here's the real cliffhanger, though. Okay, this is the cliffhanger I want you to leave us with.
Mm-hmm.
You had a conversation with me in our kitchen, Campbell Road house, where you said, "I think I don't want to practice clinically anymore. I think I want to be a coach.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us very quickly, like, how did it go from having these really crappy jobs, not getting paid at all, being actually a very talented dentist? You're very talented. And I think that's something that kind of gets lost sometimes. I want you to talk about this a little bit. It's like when you step away from dentistry, did you step away because you weren't very good? This is what people think, right? But if you're in the trenches, you got to be like really good. Like, honestly, when people think about Kyle Stanley, he's a great dentist, and he stepped away because there's something more important for him.
Right.
I bring it up because we're talking about that in the context of this conversation. But there's a lot of docs who step away because they're actually very talented, but there's something higher that's calling them. So tell the people a little bit about why it is that you started to have this seed planted and where you wanted to go with it. I think it's a good cliffhanger.
Yeah. So I would love to tell you all that I just had a higher purpose on my life. It wasn't that. I was like, fuck this shit. That's the truth.
I love it.
That's the truth. It was not like, oh, I just am meant for more than clinical dentistry. I was just like, fuck this shit. I've got it. Like, this isn't what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that. That's the cliffhanger is.
That was great.
Fuck this shit.
That's awesome. Give us your life's purpose. Fuck it. Okay. You got it.
I said what I said.
Well, part two.
Okay.
Coming very soon. Thank you for listening and or watching the Dental and Mental podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any others for that matter, feel free to tap that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as Spotify. While you're there, why not leave us a review up to 5 stars? And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what topic you want us to discuss next.
If you like what you heard today and you want to be involved in the Thrive world from coaching to courses or just to connect with us, go to thethrivedentist.com.